Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Agenda Chat series. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever in the world you're watching us from. I'm delighted to have you join us, whether you're watching across Nigeria and beyond. And if this is your first time joining us, the Agenda Chat series is a platform where we bring people, ideas, and experiences together to have meaningful conversations around issues that affect our society and our future. At the Adeboye Foundation, we believe that meaningful change begins with meaningful conversations. Our goal is simple, that everyone who joins these conversations leaves better informed, inspired, and equipped to contribute to positive change within their communities. So, whether you're joining us from tonight, I encourage you to stay with us. Listen, engage with the conversation, and most importantly, share your thoughts with us in the comments. Now, before we dive into today's conversation, let me tell you a little about the organization behind this initiative, the Dare Adeboye Foundation. This is a legacy and impact organization established to preserve and advance the vision of late Pastor Oluwadamilare Adeboye, a man whose life was devoted to youth development, leadership, education, and community transformation. This year marks 5 years since the foundation was established, and over these years, we have remained committed to investing in young Africans through strategic interventions that create lasting impact. Our vision is to see a world positively transformed by the ingenuity and proactiveness of young Africans in providing leadership that entrenches the rule of law and continuous social change for the development of all. And our mission is to inspire and empower young Africans to change the world by providing practical support that enables them to improve their lives, lead in their communities, and actively pursue an egalitarian society with equal opportunities for all. Everything we do is centered on empowering people to become catalysts for positive change. One of the foundation's core pillars is education, and we believe education is one of the greatest investments any society can make. Because when you educate a child, you don't just change one life, you change families, communities, and generations. That belief inspired one of our flagship initiatives, the Nurturing Education Skills and Technology Project, better known as NEST, NEST. NEST is a comprehensive education intervention designed to ensure that vulnerable children not only gain access to school, but also have the resources and environments they need to thrive. Through NEST, the foundation is working to identify and enroll out of school children into primary education while also introducing children's skills development and technology from an early age. The project is intentionally designed to move beyond scholarships and tackle some of the broader barriers preventing children from accessing quality education. And that brings us right into the heart of today's conversation. Across our cities and communities, countless children remain out of school, often invisible to the systems meant to serve them. And tonight, under the theme From Street to School, innovative models of tackling out of school children, we are asking some very important questions. How do we bridge the gap between where these children are today and the future we owe them? What role should communities play in bridging them back into the classroom? What practical and innovative models are already working on the ground? And how can each of us, not just policymakers or educators, become part of the solution? These are the questions we'll be unpacking today. But first, it gives me great pleasure to introduce someone whose experience places him at the heart of this conversation. I mean, they say experience is the best teacher. Well, our guest this evening has not only studied some of the challenges surrounding education, he has spent years working within the ecosystem, engaging with communities, teaching, writing, facilitating, training, and contributing to the development of young people. I'm sure that some of us have seen our flyers already. We've seen who our guest is, but for the people who are just seeing this for the very first time, it is with utmost pleasure that I'll be introducing Mr. Ayodeji Anifowose. I trust that we're clapping for him. Yes, so
Thank you.
Mr. Ayodeji Anifowose is going to be joining us this evening. But just before I bring him up, I would like to read his bio, his profile for us, so we know exactly who we're going to be having this chat with. Now, our guest, Ayodeji Anifowose, is an educator, author, training facilitator, media professional, and leadership mentor with a background in economics and a strong interest in education, human development, and youth leadership. He holds a Bachelor of Education in Economics from the University of Ibadan and has taught at both primary and secondary school levels. Beyond the classroom, his work has extended into educational programs, literacy initiatives, children's development projects, training sessions, and community based learning activities. He's particularly passionate about intentional youth development and equips young people with practical tools around confidence, character, emotional intelligence, leadership, and personal responsibility. Through teaching, writing, mentorship, training, and media, it creates learning experiences that help young people understand their potential and prepare meaningfully for life and leadership. And that's why I think he's particularly well positioned to help us move this conversation beyond statistics and headlines into something much more practical. What, it, what can actually be done? Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Ayodeji Anifowose to the Agenda Chat Series.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I count this as a rare privilege to be here. Thank you again. And, thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you with us, sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
So, before we get into the big questions, I'd like to start with you personally. You've worked in education, you've taught at different levels, you've worked with young people, and you've also been involved in training and media. So, when you look at the issue of children who are out of school, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Um, you know, the first thing that comes into my mind when I look at children that are out of school, the first place I want to look at is the family. And I'm saying this because I've been involved with a lot of initiatives that involve families as well. And because, for example, now from the home, okay, let me talk about the home I came out from. Okay, I have 4 children now. So, question, will my children be out of school? No. Why? Because I, as a parent, or my with my wife, we we believe that education has a role to play in the life of every human. And so that's the first place I want to look into. I'm not looking at the government first. I'm looking at the home first because and the truth is, even if the home I came out from, to my parents never joked with education. It was serious. It was so serious. So I think the first place we should look at is the home. There's no way the father and the mother really want to provide quality education to a child, and there are challenges, but they want to get it. So when I see a child on the street out of school, the first thing I want to think about is which home is this child coming out from? Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. You mentioned that the home is the first thing that comes to mind. We want to actually know what home that these children actually come out from. And from your experience on the ground, when we say out of school children, what are we sometimes getting wrong about who these children are and why they are out of school? I know you mentioned that the home is where we look at first, but then a lot of the times, what are the things that we get wrong about these children and why they are out of school?
So, the problem, I think I prepared some slide already just to give a point out. The problem is not the classroom. No. The child outside school is often a child facing a system of barriers. So there are a lot of barriers. It's more than just that, oh, it's not in school. No. What are the problems? So before we even talk about solution, let's figure out the problem because sometimes we don't know the problem. And because we don't know the problem, it will be hard to procure a solution. So the first problem is usually poverty. I've heard parents say, I don't have money. Well, some of the initiatives that have been part of over the years, to give scholarship to children, to help with school fees. But poverty is one area. And for me, poverty is more than just lack of money. Poverty is lack of money in the mind. It's just more than it's not just about lacking cash in the hand. Some people just have a mindset believing that, no, I shouldn't spend so much money for education for this child. The second thing is insecurity. We can see what's going on around the world now, especially in the northern part of Nigeria. Uh, I was watching a video this morning how they were spending over 1.5 billion naira for mass marriage. That's funny. Uh, and education did not get anything close to this, and the children are on the streets begging, going from one place to another. So insecurity has pushed people into one area, send them some community that have schools before, because the bandits have been there, they've done a lot of things there, they're out of the place. So people are scared there and there. They don't want to risk their life. So everybody are in one place. Displacement. So because of this insecurity, it leads to displacement too. People are being displaced, and we see a lot of child labor. And again, back to the home, because of the orientation of the family that the child comes out from, they believe that the child should be used for child labor. The child will be used to go hawk. I grew up on the street of Lagos, and I see a lot of things growing up then. Even now, we still see a whole lot of things going on. So the child believe that, oh, this child should be able to make me some money here and there, and it creates some problems there. The other thing is distance. Imagine the school a child wants to attend is about is about 10 miles away from the house, and there is no adequate transportation. That's a problem. That's a problem. It's discouraging. The parent also, because of insecurity, they don't want the child to go all that way for purpose of education. And we have cultural barriers. Some culture do not really put preference on education. Why should I put this child in school? Especially if it's a female. Oh God, the one, just worry. One day she'll get back to her husband's house, and then family instability. When families are not stable in one place because of insecurity, because of displacement, they are moving from one place to the other. The child is not having, adequate continuous education. It affects the child over time. And the last one is learning gaps. So for example, a child that probably was in school today, maybe due to the loss of the child's father, the child had to get out of school, and then there was nobody to sponsor. After some time again, the child returned back to school. So it creates all those issues around there. So those are the major barriers of a child being on the streets, not being in classroom.
Thank you very much, sir, for that. If I follow you correctly, you mentioned poverty, insecurity, family instability, cultural barriers, and learning gaps. Now, out of all of these factors keeping children out of school today, would you say poverty is the biggest driver, and why?
I won't say it's poverty. Unfortunately, the reason why I won't say poverty is because I saw a video recently where I saw a mechanic is the father of a child, and the child just finished from NYC, went to meet the father. I don't know how much the father makes in a month. I don't know how much the father makes in a day, but for some reason, the father found a way legitimately, legally, to put this child in the school system. And the child finally finished university education, went for youth service, and was coming back home to honor the father. So I think it's more than poverty. I think it comes from cultural barriers. And I think within that confine of cultural barriers, there's an issue of mindset. Some people do not put great value in education. I've heard people say, "Oh, people that are educated, people that have masters, what have they used it to do in their life?" Yeah, I've heard people say that before. So when you don't have the right mindset, you won't have the right priority, and that way you won't put value on education. So even if you have 20 million you make on a monthly basis, because you don't have the right mindset, you don't have the right orientation, you don't have the right priority, you won't believe that there should be a need to put a child in a school, especially if it's a female. And for some reason, I don't know why God did it that way. I have four daughters, so and I put on myself that they have to enjoy the best education that will put them forward to enjoy, the future God has for them. So I think it's more than just poverty.
I mean, I agree with you, but looking at it, especially coming from the conversation that was had last on this show about the Olodo uprising and how that it seems like technology platformed a lot of the negative aspects of education. I mean, so how much of this problem would you say is actually about access to education compared with the, say, quality, safety, or even relevance of the education available? I mean, a lot of people come up and say things like, you're going to school to study to be an accountant. There are no roles for accountants out there anymore. AI can do the job. I don't need to go to school for that. There are a lot of people who don't believe in education, in the relevance of the education that is currently existing in our education system. So, how much of this problem would you say is actually about access to education compared to all of these other factors?
So I think again, going back to the issue of mindset and orientation, because the reason why, okay, some people believe that, well, why should I go to school to spend 4 years now this now let me break this down. When it comes to education, it comes in different ways. So sometimes I think it's also tied with the issue. So the issue of relevance, it's also tied to the issue of information. So sometimes I've seen people all around the world sometimes that really do not really have a PhD there and there, and that's not to say that having PhD is something luxury. It's good to have, but I think it's more than just having a bachelor's degree, master's degree, a PhD. It's about knowing what you want to do with your life, knowing what skills you have, and then what knowledge do you need to enhance, what knowledge do you need to enhance? I think we need to go back to that foundation. So what knowledge you need to enhance? That way, that will not talk about the issue of relevance, here and there. So, but I think most especially is to get out the right information. I remember when I was in GSS 3, we had a session then in school where we were kind of giving information about what we can study in the university, before you get to SS1, then you choose either you're going to be in a commercial class, science class, or art class. And that way, it kind of opens everybody's eyes to see, okay, this is what, it is what it is out there. And this is what I think I need to do. This is what knowledge I need to add to what I have currently. So I think more than the other barriers that we have mentioned, the issue of relevance and some other factors that surround, I think it is also more about the information, the old technology that we have available too. There is no adequate information. Some people see technology in if you If you do a survey now and figure out how 5 people see technology, it will baffle you. You will be shocked to see how they see technology in various ways. 5 people in the same community. If I just pick 5 here, 5 here, 5 there, and then so it's back to the issue of having adequate information out, people having the right orientation of what all of this mean and how it matters to building the right education system that we need in the country, Nigeria.
Mm. Thank you very much for that. So let's bring this closer to the ground. When we see a child on the street selling something, maybe hawking, working, or simply spending the day without being in school, it's easy to look at that situation from the outside and say this child needs to go to school. But then there's usually a family and an economic reality behind that child. So, what does a realistic pathway from the streets back into school? What does it actually look like?
So the first thing we need to do, I put something together that's a 5 hours. The first hour is to reach, find the child. These days now everybody talk. We just talk and talk. We kind of give all kind of ideas, but we didn't even. It's difficult to procure a solution without finding a child. Find a child because child A, B, C, D, E might have different issues that have put them on the street. So first of all, find a child. Number one, that's find a child. Then number 2 hour is remove, understand and remove the barrier. So that means you can't just say that, oh, a child should get out of the streets. First of all, let us understand what's going on. Because if you think money is the problem, meanwhile, the parent actually doesn't see value in this child being in school. So you not give them money. They will spend that money to eat. Can you see now? So money might not be the problem. So first of all, let's understand why is this child on the streets. Then when we understand the problem, then we remove the barrier. Number three, reintegrate. And that means we need to prepare and enroll. Now, that preparing and enrolling, let me explain that. Not every child should be returned from the street back to the school immediately. Some of them need that middle ground. They need that middle ground. It's not the same again. They might not been able to adapt to that environment like they have done before if they have done them before. So they need to first be put in that middle ground, and then we prepare them. And this can happen. Let me make this very very practical and easy. Um, I was just sitting down while I was preparing for this, and I think it just put some ideas in my head because of some programs I've been and initiatives that I've been doing. I started an initiative last this year. We call it Jollof Children Festival. The main purpose of that festival is to encourage children to read and learn. Nothing else. That is the jollof at the top is just the icing on the cake. The real cake is to encourage children to read and to learn. And that's why this year, the one we did this year, we make sure that we didn't take it to the island, we did it on the mainland, so that we can encourage children that do not have access instead of spending transport so that they can have access there. And we're going to repeat the same the next year. So prepare and enroll. Now, to prepare and enroll, sometimes we might not have enough access to having schools in those various communities. We can start with a mobile classroom where it will help the child, and this can be done in a very simple way. We design a bus where we can open it up when we get, or a truck when we get to a community. We open it up. We figure out how many children it can accommodate at once, and then we can have about 2 to 3 weeks program for those children in that community. Help them acclimatize into the whole environment of the school system. When we see how this program run within 2 to 3 to 4 weeks, we cannot integrate those children back into the school system. When we do this, we are gradually now. It's not really about having that big number. We can have that little number of 20, 30, 50. Train those children, prepare them, get them into the old system of the school again, of the classroom, then pull them in. Now, The fourth thing that we need to do is to retain. How do you retain? Keeping the child in the school. That means we have to now have a follow up. We can't just put the child in the school and just move on. No, don't forget, this child was once on the streets. So to make sure that the child is no more on the street, that means that we must follow up on a regular basis. We must check if the child should miss the school, maybe once or twice. We need to check thrice. We need to visit the family. So there must be that system. That system. So retain, keep the child in school. To keep the child in school, you must follow up. You must follow up. And the last one is raise. Ensure learning and progression. That means we must help the child to see where to go from there, and they keep it moving from there, up to at the point where the child wants to study to.
Thank you very much, sir. Reach, remove, reintegrate, retain, and raise. These are like very solid points because honestly, here's the challenge. If a child is contributing, say, to the survival of a household, simply taking that child off the streets and putting them in the classroom may create another problem for the family. So yes, we need to actually understand, take out time to understand every child who is out of school before we just put them back into the system, before we call for them to be sent back into the system. And I believe that that is where the reintegration also comes in for children who we can't just return into communities or into schools just like that. So that's such an important point. But we have to think about what happens after they get there, after they get back to school, after we've sent them back to school. We have to think about what happens. And that brings us to a short impact spotlight from the Daria Adeboye Foundation. So at the Daria Adeboye Foundation, we are committed to turning these conversations into action through initiatives such as NEST, scholarships, and community focused interventions. We're working to create opportunities for vulnerable children and young people. We're going to take a short moment to show you some of that work.
My name is Ifeoluwa Anjorin from the Dare Adeboye Foundation. We're here at the Bells University of Technology to organize the Dare Adeboye Annual Scholarship Scheme Screening Exam. This initiative is to support bright minds and help them achieve their dreams. Good luck to all participants.
My name is Idiola Meshak. I am coming from Community High School, Agbojoju. I hope I am granted for this scholarship. Thank you, Dare Adeboye Foundation, for this opportunity.
Welcome back. Before the break, We looked at the reality of the out of school children crisis, some of its underlying causes, and some things that could be done. Now, I want us to move from the problem to the solution because awareness is important, but ultimately the question is what works. Let's start with this. So, Mr. Ayodeji, which proven education models can best help out of school children return to school? And when we say proven, I'm particularly interested in approaches that have worked in communities with limited resources.
Thank you. So I was able to put together 9 different models for this. I was able to put 9, and then the model one is to find. So, and then when I say find, don't begin with assumption, begin with a child level picture of the community. We go this we're talking about groundwork, not about you know what we see on the internet here and there. We go into the community, and these are things that are proven over time. I've been able to be part of some UN initiative many years ago, UNICEF initiative that we had to, help children, from different communities. And the first thing we do is, you know, we see the traditional leaders that are in that community, the youth organization, local government, the school, the youth volunteer, and the market community. And these are the things, the people that we can easily reach and see. We engage and see what exactly. So we find the second model that I've seen is to bridge. Now, there is a gap between the child and the real community in the classroom. Not every child can move directly from the street into a conventional classroom, like I said. So there are different levels to this. You take a child from the street to a safe hub, from the safe hub to a 3 to 9 month accelerated learning, and then into a formal school. What this does is that it prepares the child to be well grounded. It prepares the child to be well grounded. And we don't need to, like I said, the number doesn't need to be a huge number. We can start as little as, having one high need community of 50 to 100 children, and then we will measure their transition into a formal school. This is a proven system that can work anywhere. We don't need to have some billions of dollars what do you call it, fund to get this done. This from the streets, we get it saved up. And I see the Dagadiwe Foundation having done some programs around, for children, and have a 3 to 9 month accelerated learning. If there are churches, if there are communities that have, halls and co where this can be done, and that's why we need to work with the traditional rulers, those people on ground, and then before we now put the children into a formal school. And the third model I found that is flex. And what does that mean? Is to now create a better learning system for the child. Take education to the child. So, which means that sometimes we might not have the proven building and co. We have remote settlement. We have people that are the displaced community, market, high mobile population. What do we do? Is what I spoke about earlier on, and this is something that I was putting up together that it should work in our communities. A bus. It doesn't need to be. In fact, we can even find a bus or a van, and then design it to meet up with this skill. It doesn't need to be so luxury here and there, but it will help us achieve. And then we have tablets, books. So many organizations today now are willing to give out some of these things for free here and there, which are some of the things that we are working on the side. But I'm going to get to one interesting part shortly. The fourth model is to remove. A child may be exploited by a small specific barrier. So we need to now remove those barriers. Number one, uniform. Some children do not have access to uniform. There's no money. Somebody that have not eaten, you want the child to go and buy uniform, transportation, meals, books, exams. So, the question we should now be asking is what exactly is stopping this particular child from going to school? What exactly? So we remove that barrier and we figure out a way that the barrier will never come in again. I'll give an example. If a mother says that the reason why I've not been able to send my child out, for school is because there is no funds. I think more than just giving the child scholarship, I think we should look at the mother's business and see if this woman truly says or means the fact that if her business is doing well, she's able to, push this child off into the school and continuously support the child. I think I would rather support the mother to be able to have something. So we'll remove that barrier. If it's to have meals, we figure out a solution that won't be one time. It will be a sustained one. But I'm saying that some of these old barriers, instead of addressing it from the point of the child, it might be much better if there are sincere parents that we can address it from their own angle and it will pass on to the child to be much, much more effective. So we remove the barrier. Then the model five is to stabilize. We cannot sustainably take children off the street without addressing why some family put them there. Back again to what I was mentioning earlier on, is to empower the parent, stabilize the household, educate the child. One of the programs I was part of back in the days, many years ago with UNICEF. One of the things that UNICEF, empowers us to do is we go into the home of these children. We provide food. We deliver food into different homes. There are lists of homes in those communities that we are. It was particularly in Lagos, some very 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 interior communities, and we have a list. So we visit one home after the other. So stabilize the household. What's going on, and then we cannot educate the child. Again, educate, so empower the parents, stabilize the household, and educate the child. And this can happen in different way. Having opportunities for vocational training, cooperative, micro enterprise, financial literacy, empowerment support. Sometimes ordinarily starting a business or helping the mother or the father to have a consistent income can help to sustain the child in the school system. And the model six, model six is to raise. For an older child, the pathway back into learning may need to look different for the model six. So, like I said again, every child case is different. So it's difficult to now generalize. I said, oh, this is how it should be for everybody. No, every child is different. So we now look at that child, look at the child's age, look at the child's circumstances, and see what can we do. We can either go on the path of the academics, digital ICC, vocational entrepreneurship. Now, let me say this. It is not compulsory for a child, and that's something that we need to pass across that's very important. Not really the four-wall university. There are some people that all they need to enhance the skill that they have is it's some of these programs being done, the vocational center being done, the technology, what we have before as our polytechnic, teaching some very very practical ways of handling some things. I've seen some people that are doing woodwork, different things like that, and it helps the child depending on what the child wants to do. We have areas in agriculture, fashion, photography, catering, construction, creative art. Now, I need to say this. We are empowering a child to solve the solution in our community, in our nation. So everything that we study, that we go to school to study, is to end up coming back and providing solution. So when we are putting a child back into school, we must have that understanding back of mind that we are preparing this child to solve a problem in the community in the nearest future. And we can partner with local farmers, food companies, NGO, government, and the community to be able to achieve this. And then, irrespective of the age of the child, it is never too late to learn. Model 7, quickly, is to retain. Don't wait for dropout to become statistics. We detect the warning sign. We'll have known. When a child is absent for 3 times in the school, the teacher should contact the parents. 5 times, a community has to follow up. If it's a repeated absence, then there must be home visit and assess the barrier. What's going on? What's going on? So our system will now shift from dropout reporting to dropout intervention. So before a child drops out of school, we are able to quickly mitigate and see let's stop this thing from happening. And the model 8, which is my which is the second to last, is to mobilize company, foundation, diaspora association, adopt a community. Now, let me say this very important. One of the biggest mistakes we have done so far, and like I said, we have done, not just some people, we have done, including me, is that sometimes we want to start some of this initiative because we feel that we can support, we can help, and we want to do it all our own. Start. It's wrong. Sometimes you don't need to start anything to support. Sometimes you can just find a platform like the Adeboye Foundation that is proven to be genuine and support. They can help you achieve that result you are looking for in the society. Instead of you starting to create your own, you go and start your own NGO, you go and start looking for people, and usually it is not sustainable. It won't last. It won't last. Like, it will be very crazy for me now to want to, execute some things that involve some of these old models that I've mentioned, and I'm trying to create something anew for myself. I'd rather go to the Ayodeji Foundation and help team up together, partner together, and achieve this instead of starting something that will not be sustainable. I will do it for the first year, second year, third year. The fourth year, I might not even get to the fourth year. I'm tired because there is no structure that I've built to make this work. I'll get tired and frustrated. But instead of just standing alone, we can work either individually, organization, companies. Find a proven platform like the Adeboye Foundation. Support, drop your donation, drop your scholarship. Sometimes we want to give scholarship to some people in one community here and there. Instead of doing all of that and going through all those stress, find a proven platform. Honestly, it helps. And then they can adopt the community. And trust me, they will give you a review. They will give you a report and tell you this is how much we got, this is how much that was spent, and this is what we achieved. Then the last one, amplify. Amplify. NYC Education Fellows. We now look for a way to use our NYC people to achieve a lot of this. If the government can do this, it will help a lot. They will help with remedial literacy, mathematics, mentoring, after school learning, enrollment. Well, before I went for NYC, I taught in the classroom. When I went to NYC, I still want to teach in the classroom, but they would draw me back. But I was looking for opportunity to always teach in class because I love to teach. It's something that I believe, not just because I did economics education, but because I naturally love to teach. So I believe NYC fellows can be used to achieve some of this aim as they are sent, to do something great for that 1 year service. And then we can also put in for offline friendly technology, low cost tablets, solar charging, downloaded lesson. We find books around that we can send. Sometimes there are people that have books that the children, some children, all they need is to see some adequate material, books to read. Some children want to read. They want to read. They really want to read. So when we create this opportunity, it goes a long way to be able to achieve what we're looking for. Let me round up this question this way: is that one thing that is very important is that we cannot achieve this personally, so that I can put my name. Sponsored by Ayodeji Anifowose. No, don't do that. You can do this with, if yours is not for a show off, if it's actually to solve the problem, then come work with people that have a proven record, that they have done this over time, and I'm sure within a trick of an eye, two, 3, 4, 5 years, we will see the results we are able to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I mean, it shows that you really love to teach. You mentioned it quite a number of times in answering this question, and yes, you schooled everyone listening to you this evening. Thank you very much for answering those questions extensively. I mean, you've spoken to the role of governments, you've spoken to the role of individuals as well. So you've answered some of the questions that I even have planned to ask you. Thank you very much, sir. Here's perhaps one of the more difficult questions. So there are children whose circumstances make conventional schooling difficult. I mean, I know that when you were speaking about the bridge, you spoke about how we could have safe hubs, using already established institutions to bring these children into and all of that. But for example, a child who spends, say, the day working or working because the family depends on that income. I mean, we have children who their parents are probably indisposed in one way or the other, who will, like, there's nothing those children can do. They need to work for survival. So what immediate ground level learning models can provide basic education to these children without completely disrupting their source of livelihood?
Okay, thank you so much. We have this whole idea thinking that a school needs to be in a way where we go to school in the morning and come back in the evening. No. As a matter of fact, my first child now, she's homeschooled. And that homeschooling give me opportunity to decide what hour of the day she wants to do the work. So now, for a child who naturally has been hawking or selling stuff to make an ends meet, we can find a suitable time for them. We can have an evening class. The important thing we are trying to achieve is to give this child education. So it doesn't necessarily need to go out on a school from morning to evening. It's about giving education. How we give the education, what time the education is given is not the issue. It is giving that education. So if what can work for those set of children is to say, instead of coming to the class, because when they probably will make more money from what they are selling is from morning to evening. Immediately, what we can first do is to put them into the system. Let them find a good time in the day. They will do the classroom. Over time, when we are able to find at the long run, when we're able to find a permanent solution to make sure that they do not have a need to hawk again, then they can have the return back into the normal school system of running from morning till evening. But immediately, what we can do is to have a separate structure, of learning for those children, which comes in the evening, and then it will work for them, depending on what time, it's okay for them.
I hear you, sir. I hear you. But this solution, do you think that it is something that we would need the government to implement? Or because traditionally, what we have in these situations are most likely learning hubs, learning centers, and all. And I'm not sure that we have them particularly for young learners. I know we have learning hubs for maybe people in secondary education system and all. We don't have for primary education. So is it something that is the role of government, or are you saying that individuals, people, organizations can also look into this solution and make this available, especially targeted towards out of school children?
Okay, realistically speaking, in Nigeria of today, you want to rely on the government, then you are not ready to work. Mm. So you can see that the government is still even struggling with so many other things that we want them to do, but they are not. But because of the future of these children, we will not wait for the government. We can't afford to wait for the government, because we don't know how long we're going to wait. But when we prefer a solution and then it's working, the government will be forced to step in. Now, um, individuals, we have individuals, we have organizations, we have a team of people who are willing to resolve this problem all around the world. We can't wait for them. We the individuals are the ones that will now come together. Like I said, this platform that we have, the Adeboye Foundation, we can come up and say, you know what, let's create a funding of $50,000, and this is what we want to achieve. Pick one, two, three, four communities, one, two, three, four communities, and let's see what we can do. Now, for the primary school students, for the primary education, we can now. I will not completely say we should put them permanently for that evening classes. It's just temporarily. When a child is in that kind of space for at least about 3 to 6 months, It changes the way they think. And then within that time, we are looking for an alternative to make sure that what has become a livelihood before is not completely taken away. And then we can now fix that so that the child can return back into the normal school structure. So we don't need to wait for the government. We wait for the government for many things. If you want me to mention what I've waited for the government all my life in Nigeria, you don't want to wait for that list. But we need to rise up and get this thing done. So somebody asked me one day, I've written a lot of books for children. The person said, "Why are you so interested about children so much that at least just monitor your own?" And I told the person one thing. I said, the child I am living there on the street without doing anything for the child, that child one day might end up being the one that will carry a gun and wants to kidnap my own daughter, God forbid, somewhere. So if you don't join hands together with everyone to resolve this problem, the problem will come haunting you in the future, and that will become a big problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Time flies when you're having fun. But one final question before we open the floor to our audience. We've talked about several promising approaches, but one of the biggest challenges in social intervention is moving from one successful project to something that can reach thousands or even millions of people. So, what needs to happen for successful community based education models to be scaled across Nigeria, especially also looking at some parts of northern Nigeria where the Almajiri system is active in places like that. So, what needs to actually happen for successful community based education models to be scaled across Nigeria?
Now, even though I have said that we can't wait for the government, we cannot also do it without the government. Because to reach those communities and to run something continuous, we need to work with the government. We need to work the government. We need to work with some of the existing structures. We need to work with the existing system so that we can get our desired results. Because the government already have all of this old station system. The reason why we can work with local government is because the state government already created local government. So we can identify that there's one government here and there. So we can team up in the way with local government and being able to profile the solution, and it can work, but we can't do it without the government still. But we will not wait for the government to bring in the solution. And the very simple thing to do here is this. If we put up a target, for example, now let's say we create a session now and have everyone that really want to support bringing education in Nigeria to the level it should be, come on board, and then we have a conversation on the table, and then we are able to pull support from different ground here and there. We will be able to get something done and running, and over time other people that probably do not believe in such system will come to the realization over time, and will be able to achieve what we are looking for. But again, I say we can't wait for the government, but we cannot work without government. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. We can't wait for the government, but we cannot also work without the government. That is such an insightful quote. And that is also a great place to bring our audience into the conversation. So we've received some questions, and I want to take just one because we are pressed for time. So if you are watching us live on YouTube, this is your opportunity to join the conversation. I'm just going to take one question, and then but I mean you can still keep dropping your questions in the comments, and if we can attend to them in this session, we'll definitely get to you. Now the question that I have to take is this: how can young people volunteer or contribute to education without necessarily having a lot of money? So sir, what opportunities would you encourage them to explore?
Very great question. And I think I mentioned things around this earlier on. Now, when we create this whole model something similar that I've mentioned. Everybody now have their role. I mentioned the NYC earlier on. So we cannot create a system where young people can decide, okay, you know what, I'm good in maths, I'm good in science, I'm good in this and that, and they're able to come in and lend their own support here and there. So it's not really about money all the time. As a young person, if all you can do is to help to teach, okay, I will teach for this community. So there can be like a system where people can come in, they will sign up and now decide, okay, these are the things I can do, these are the hours I'm available, and then from there, there are people that will be available at certain hours for certain things, and we are able to all this together so that even without having so much money, you are able to contribute to your skill by helping a child out of the streets.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I believe that question was answered sufficiently. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your time so far. Before we move into our final reflections, I would like us to pause for a moment. Now, because behind every statistic is a child with potential, a child who deserves an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to imagine a future beyond the circumstances they were born into. Education is not simply about getting children into classrooms. It's about giving them the tools to participate meaningfully in society and shape the future they will inherit. So let's have our quotes now. We have a quote from Nelson Mandela which says, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And that's why tonight's conversation matters. Every child deserves access to quality education. So now back to our hosts. So we've covered a lot of ground tonight, and I'll just like to ask you for one takeaway, one key takeaway. I mean, what if anyone is going to take out anything from these conversations that we've had today? What is that one thing that you would want them to take out from the conversations we've had today?
And the thing is to have a real test of success of this. Don't just take a child out of the streets. Build a system that prevents the child from returning. Don't just take a child out of the streets. Build a sustainable system that would not allow the child to return into the streets, which is very important. I know, like I've said in my notes I prepared, we found them, we enrolled them, we kept them, they are learned, and we changed the trajectory of their lives. That's it. That's it. So we don't just take them out of the street, but we build a system that will prevent them from returning back to the streets. Thank you.
Okay, so don't just take a child out of the streets, build a system that keeps that child out of the streets. Thank you, Mr. Ayodeji, for joining us. Thank you for your time, your insights, and being part of this important conversation. I think one of the biggest lessons from tonight is that moving a child from street to school requires more than simply opening a classroom door. It requires us to understand the child, understand the family, understand the community, and build solutions that actually respond to those realities. And importantly, it requires all of us to recognize that this is not someone else's problem. There's a role for government, there's a role for schools and educators, there's a role for organizations and community leaders, and there's a role for you and me. So if tonight's conversation has challenged you, don't let it end here. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. If you know a child who needs support, look for credible organizations and initiatives working in education and find out how you can contribute. You can as well partner with the Dari Adeboye Foundation. And if you simply have knowledge, time, skills, or a platform that can help, those are resources too. Once again, thank you to our guest, Mr. Ayodeji Anifowose, for joining us. And thank you to everyone who has watched, commented, and participated in today's edition of the Agenda Chat series. If you haven't already, please follow the Daria Adeboye Foundation, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on all social media platforms, and share this conversation with your friends, family, and community. My name is Dolapo, and it has been a pleasure hosting you. We'll see you at the next edition of the Agenda Chat series. Thank you for joining us.